300 miles from land, a steel giant houses men and women who eat, sleep, and risk everything so the world's energy keeps flowing. Every meal, every hour of sleep, every shift is rationed by the thrum of machinery and the threat of storms no city has ever seen. The price for survival here goes far beyond fatigue. But what does it truly take to endure life in the middle of the ocean? And what can go wrong when that system is pushed to the edge? Beyond the horizon, oil platforms rise from the sea, engineered to anchor themselves where land is a distant memory. In the North Sea, some platforms float more than 300 miles from the nearest coastline, surrounded by waters that can turn violent without warning. In the Gulf of Mexico, rigs perch over deep blue water, often 100 to 200 miles from shore, tethered to the seabed or drifting above oil fields. These structures are not scattered randomly. They are placed wherever geology promises oil, no matter how remote or unforgiving the environment. Isolation. The choice of such extreme locations is driven by necessity. On the Sakhalin Shelf off Russia, platforms operate just 25 kilometers from land, but the Arctic cold and shifting ice demand as much endurance as distance. In every region, whether the icy chop of the North Sea or the hurricane corridor of the Gulf, workers are cut off from the mainland by stretches of open ocean that can swallow ships and silence radio signals. Endurance. Distances like 100, 200, even 300 miles from land are not exceptions. They are the rule. Helicopters and supply boats must cross these gaps to deliver people, food, and equipment. Once aboard, crews enter a world defined by the sea's isolation, where the nearest help can be hours away, and the edge of the platform marks the edge of civilization. Distance. The journey to an offshore rig begins long before sunrise. Workers gather at a heliport, weighed down with personal gear and safety kits, waiting for their names to be called. Helicopters serve as the lifeline to these distant platforms, flying crews out for 2 to 3 week hitches that shape their entire calendar. Boarding the chopper is routine, but never casual. Each seat and bag is logged, and every passenger is briefed on emergency procedures. The flight itself is a test of nerves, with the sea stretching endlessly below, and weather always a wild card. Sudden fog or high winds can ground flights for hours, sometimes days, stranding crews on either side of the water. A floor hand on his first lift might grip the seat tight as the rotors beat overhead, eyes fixed on the horizon where the rig finally appears, just a speck at first, then a steel city rising from the waves. Touchdown on the helideck is swift. Engines roar, doors open, and the new shift moves out while the old one boards for home. Crew boats follow their own rhythm, ferrying bulk supplies and backup teams, but for most workers, the helicopter commute sets the tempo of life offshore. Rotation schedules are strict, 2 to 3 weeks on, then 2 to 4 weeks off, repeated year-round. Miss a flight and you miss your slot, with personal plans and family time hanging in the balance. Every arrival and departure is a reminder. Access to the outside world is measured in flight, manifests, and weather windows, not in minutes or miles. For workers offshore, time and connection are scheduled, fragile, and always subject to the ocean. A narrow door opens onto a corridor of identical metal doors, each hiding a cabin just big enough for 2 bunks, slim lockers, and a shelf. Every surface is measured, beds pressed to the wall, storage wedged beneath, sometimes a single porthole, often none. Mineral wool insulation fills the walls, meant to dull the machinery's constant drone and the rattle of pipes. Still, the hum seeps in, joined by boots thudding overhead and the distant thump from the helideck. Designers target 45 decibels in sleeping quarters, but readings often spike, especially during storms or heavy operations. Earplugs are as common as toothbrushes. Blackout curtains are taped over doors, vents redirected to keep cold drafts off the bunks. Privacy is rare, Most cabins are shared, and shift patterns mean someone is always trying to sleep while another gears up for work. Down the hall, the smell of frying bacon and fresh bread cuts through the metallic air. The galley never really closes. Each day, a team of chefs prepares up to 600 meals for a crew of 100, cycling through breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks to keep the buffet line moving. Menu cycles are planned weeks ahead, every ingredient ordered in advance. Resupply is a helicopter ride away. The head chef manages a tight routine. Prep starts before dawn. Trays are grabbed in a rush before shift changes. Most workers need 3,000 to 4,500 calories a day, especially in the cold. Hot meals and sweet desserts fill the mess, fueling bodies and lifting spirits. 12-hour shifts define the RHTHM of life offshore. At 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., the crew changes over, trading places on the drill floor, in the engine room, and throughout the maze of platforms and catwalks. The work never stops, not for weekends or holidays. A floor hand steps onto the deck before dawn, steel-toed boots slick with salt spray, hands already stiff from the cold. Tasks repeat in cycles, lifting pipe, guiding heavy equipment, checking gauges, each one demanding precision and constant attention. Even when the body aches, the expectation is clear. Keep moving, keep alert. Fatigue builds in layers. After a week of 12-hour days, sleep comes in fragments, interrupted by alarms, machinery noise, and the ever-present vibration of the rig. Studies from the North Sea and the Gulf of Mexico show most workers average just 6 hours of sleep per day, even less for those on night shifts. By the end of a 2 or 3 week hitch, exhaustion is visible in every movement. Mistakes become more likely as concentration slips. Industry data links up to 20% of offshore incidents to fatigue or reduced alertness, a risk that grows with every extra hour on the clock. The grind is not limited to the drill crew. Electricians, crane operators, medics, and cooks all work the same relentless schedule. A floor hand might push through the last hours of a shift with sore muscles and a foggy mind, knowing that any lapse can have consequences. Burnout is common. Recent surveys show 1 in 3 offshore workers meets the criteria. Still, the machinery demands its tempo, and the human body is expected to keep pace, day after day, until it is time to fly home. Forecast monitors flicker in the control room as a new weather front approaches. On rigs in the Gulf of Mexico and the North Sea, every crew knows the drill. As winds climb toward 100, 120, and sometimes 150 miles per hour, operations pivot to storm standby. Drilling halts. Equipment is secured. Crew muster lists are checked and rechecked. The platform's design is tested against the elements. Steel and concrete built to withstand waves up to 23 meters and hurricane-force winds, but always with limits. ISO 19901. Part 1 and API standards dictate these thresholds, and when forecasts threaten to breach them, the order comes down: prepare for evacuation or ride it out. Inside, the atmosphere tightens. Medics monitor fatigue as workers pull extra watches and meal breaks shrink to minutes. Each person waits, listening to the wind rattle bulkheads, knowing the difference between a safe standby and a forced evacuation can come down to a single forecast update. In these hours, endurance is measured not just in muscle, but in nerve. A floor hand unlaces his boots at the end of another 12-hour shift, counting the days left in his rotation. Offshore pay is the reason most workers keep coming back. Annual earnings range from $80,000 to $150,000, sometimes higher with overtime and hazard bonuses. For many, this is a chance to pay off debts, buy a house, or build a future that feels out of reach on land. The numbers look good on paper, but every dollar comes with a hidden toll. Years of heavy lifting and constant vibration leave backs and joints aching long after a hitch ends. Chronic fatigue, sleep disruption, and nagging injuries are common. especially for those who work the drill floor or handle equipment in all weather. Industry surveys show 1 in 3 offshore workers meets the criteria for burnout, and many leave after just a few years, driven out not by the sea, but by the slow accumulation of pain and missed family milestones. The trade-off is clear, and every worker weighs it in private moments, high pay for hard years, with the hope that the sacrifice will be worth it in the end. Right now, 160,000 people work offshore, out of sight, but never out of consequence. As global energy demands grow, their endurance and sacrifice keep the lights on. Every barrel has a human cost, measured not just in dollars but in days and nights far from shore.